are back for another edition of Black Tower Radio. I am your host, Jake Fox, and we are broadcasting live on 1040 AM, 92.1 FM, WYSL in Rochester, New York. Also on worldnewsradio.today. That's worldnewsradio.today. And today we're joined by a very special guest, a very popular bullion trader by the name of Andy Hoffman. He's a writer, director of marketing for MilesFranklin.com. He is a very, very intelligent guy with great analysis. That's why we invited him on the show today. And we really like his message here at Black Tower Radio. So we'd like to have a conversation, get his take on a number of things. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Well, thanks for having me, Jake. And again, I'm not a trader. Our company, Miles Franklin, is one of the oldest precious metal bullion dealers in the country. So we buy, sell, and trade precious metals and store it.
My apologies, bullion dealer.
No problem.
So, excuse me. So I'm looking at the gold and silver markets, and I'm seeing a lot of manipulation. I'm seeing, from what I'm reading in Zero Hedge and in various other outlets, there's a silver shortage. There's lots of demand. Miners can't keep up, yet the price of silver is not skyrocketing. What's going on here, Andy?
Right. Well, of course, it actually was skyrocketing today. But yes, relative to demand and supply fundamentals, relative to the fact that it was $50 an ounce actually 5 years ago to the day, when a major manipulation operation came in to push it down, and actually it was $50 an ounce back in 1980. And you think about how much less silver inventory there is, how much more demand there is, and how much more money printing, meaning how much more valuable silver is than it was back then. And of course, the main reason is because like most markets, pretty much all markets these days is manipulated for a big reason, because gold and silver are the enemies of the paper money system. You can't just create gold and silver out of thin air. They are valuable and scarce, and that's why they've been money for thousands of years, whereas fiat dollars and yen and euros and every other currency before them have failed, and the ones that are around now are being rapidly depreciated, and they too will fail. So, I cut my teeth in this area. I started 14 years ago following the manipulation. I've probably become one of the top 5 people in the world at analyzing it. I mean, look, we just had an admission after all these years. Deutsche Bank just admitted in court that they've been suppressing prices for the last 15 years. So it's not a conspiracy. It's happening, and it's happening for a reason. There's gargantuan monetary wars going on as the dollar and all these fiat currencies are being hyperinflated right now. And the end game is always the same: gold and silver wins, the paper currencies lose.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the Fed and its partners, and they seem to be doing everything they can to stave off market forces with regards to gold, silver, and the dollar. I mean, you can't stave off market forces forever. How do you see this playing out? I mean, is this going to be a hard crash? Is this going to be spread out over time? The pain, will it be spread out over a long period of time?
Well, absolutely. You can't manipulate anything forever. I mean, you can't even, for all the talk, people talk about QE, right? Quantitative easing, meaning, and people say, well, they can keep the stock and bond market up forever. They just keep printing money and buying stocks and bonds. The problem is, even that you can't do. Well, for one, because people start to lose faith in the currency when they see them issuing negative interest rates and printing money to monetize things. That causes a run on the currency and, fear, which devalues the currency. And the other thing is, as the Bank of Japan is realizing now, you run out of stocks to buy. Right now, the Bank of Japan is a top 10 holder of 90% of the companies in Japan. And if they keep trying to prop up the market, they're going to wind up owning all of the companies. Just like right now, the U.S. government owns half of all the mortgage bonds ever issued. The Bank of European Central Bank now owns so many sovereign bonds, worthless sovereign bonds, I might add, that they're monetizing corporate bonds right now. So again, there are limits on on how far you can go, and right now, I think we're at the end of all of the lines. Whether they run out of things to buy and things crash, or you have a confidence loss. But the thing is, Americans don't realize the average currency. Remember, there's 180 other currencies around the world. The average currency right now is pretty close to, in many cases, at or well below its all-time low. So we've seen the central banks really, really destroy currencies in the last 10 years, particularly since the 2008 crash. And it's only going to get worse because right now the global economy is the worst that it's been probably since the Great Depression. And because of all the overcapacity that's been built up from years of money printing and Wall Street derivatives and all kinds of things that have put money into the hands of people that shouldn't have it, we have an oversupply issue of debt, of industrial capacity, of pretty much everything out there that's going to last for a long time. So you're going to see defaults by hyperinflation, you're going to see defaults because people can't pay, and you're going to see more and more central bank lunacy like you're seeing now, negative interest rates, quantitative easing, etc.
I mean, what you were just talking about, central bank lunacy, and you mentioned the Bank of Japan. I mean, not too long ago, I remember the Bank of Japan said they will never raise rates. And then they do not too long right after. I mean, it's not much different from our own Fed, who said, we're going to raise rates, and then soon thereafter they say, no, we never said we were going to raise rates at all. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, this central bank lunacy is a virus that has spread throughout the entire world, it seems.
That's right. It's can kicking. I mean, they have three tools in their arsenal. They have money printing, market manipulation, most of it, by the way, which is covert, and propaganda. And the Fed is a perfect example. The market goes up. They push the market up with their PPT and all kinds of other machinations to make the Dow go up. And then when it goes up, they say, yeah, well, we think the economy is getting better. We're thinking about raising interest rates sometime in the future. And then as soon as the market goes down a little bit, and everyone says, well, you're going to raise rates. Oh, no, we're a bit nervous about things. We're just going to let it go. And, they've been saying for 3.5 years that they're going to raise rates and exit their $4.5 trillion balance sheet. And, of course, they're not going to. No one can. None of these banks can. Because they're all stuck. It's a Ponzi scheme. You can't get out of a $4.5 trillion balance sheet. And think about what they have on their balance sheet. They're holding U.S. Treasury bonds. The U.S. government is the most heavily indebted and insolvent institution in world history. And the Fed's balance sheet is holding $4 trillion worth of these bonds at all-time high values. So, of course, they can't sell out of them. The same goes for Japanese and European and any of these central banks. I mean, this is the end game. I mean, how much further can you go than negative interest rates? Are you going to take them more negative? You're going to print more money and buy more stocks and own all the stocks in the world? I mean, no. This is why gold and silver, after years of manipulation, are now back in a bull market everywhere in the world. They're going up, and why they're going to continue to do so. And the other thing is, by keeping the prices down for so long, like you were talking about the miners, the mining industry has been destroyed. We've seen peak gold and silver now at a time where you have record prices. Or I should say record demand, sorry.
I find it interesting that our stock market has been relatively healthy in terms of gains. And when you look around the world, I mean, you see people are generally flat, or they're trending downwards. I mean, why do you think that's happening? I mean, do you think people are fleeing to the dollar in terms of or our bonds in terms of in the face of economic uncertainty?
Well, no, they're not fleeing to our bonds. No one's crazy enough to buy our bonds at all-time highs, except for the few hedge funds that are still around, because so many hedge funds have been destroyed in recent years by underperforming the market. And the hedge funds that are in it are simply front-running the central banks, because they know the central banks will keep monetizing at any price. They're buying German bonds now and Japanese bonds at negative yields because they know that the ECB and the Bank of Japan has said they will keep buying them and make the prices go up. But if you look at what the governments are doing, I mean, China and Japan are the two biggest holders of treasuries. China has been selling huge amounts of treasuries, which means, of course, who do you think's buying them? It's the Fed has been buying them. They're doing more QE. They're just not telling you they're doing it because there's no one else who could absorb that. And as for the stock market, well, it's not the average person that's buying because U.S. stock ownership, just like U.S. home ownership, is at multi-decade lows. It's the government that is printing money and buying stocks. We have a group called the President's Working Group on Capital Markets. Their job is to manipulate the market. The only difference between the United States and, let's say, the Bank of Japan or Switzerland is that the U.S. is covert. They're buying the stock market up secretly. They don't tell you, whereas the Bank of Japan says, yeah, it's our policy to buy stocks. And that's why you have very, very thin trading volumes, very, very poor breadth. That's why the hedge funds are all underperforming. They don't understand that most stocks are doing badly. It's just the stock averages that are propped up by all the manipulation, et cetera. So again, there's not. And again, remember, the United States, we still do have the reserve currency, so we're able to print money and have it lose value at a lesser rate than the other currencies around the world. So we can get away with a lot. And we do have the most advanced Wall Street methods of manipulating markets between high-frequency algorithms and derivatives and off-balance sheet trades and black pools and dark pools. We got all kinds of stuff that other people can't do in an advanced fashion. But, like anything else, very few people could care less about the stock market these days. And what's really going on is that Main Street, the actual business of America, just like the rest of the world, is as bad as it's been. I mean, they announced today they announced GDP for the first quarter was 0.5%. And that's with all kinds of adjustments, crazy, ridiculous accounting adjustments, just to make it look positive. Just like Europe. You look at Europe, they're always announcing 0.2% growth, 0.3%. There's no point per. There were negative growth in the United States and Europe, everywhere. And it's just a matter of faking the accounting to make it look even mildly positive.
It's interesting that you talk about the business community. I mean, where is the business community? Where is their voice on all of this? I mean, the bankers are essentially destroying everything for them. Right? I mean, has the business community, essentially just gone overseas? Are they not even a real voice or presence here anymore?
Well, I mean, the big companies are a major. They're some of the biggest lobbyers in the world, and that's why there's so many. I mean, look at the three biggest lobbies in America. They're healthcare, and hence we get Obamacare. The defense industry, hence our endless wars, and of course the finance industry, which is why there's no regulation to rein them in, and they're too big to fail. So when you talk about the big corporate titans, they are, it's very expensive to run for office, and that's how you get your money. And that's why Donald Trump is so dangerous to people because he doesn't take that money because he doesn't need it. But as for the rest of America, what can you do about it? What can a gold miner do if the price is manipulated? Pretty much nothing. What can the average person do to protect themselves from inflation when they don't have any money? Not much. It's a really sad world where the 1% have you haven't seen this kind of income inequality in many, many decades.
I'm looking at all of these bubbles all over the place. You have housing bubble, credit bubble, student loan debt bubble, on and on. But the one that seems to be the most fascinating to me is the fracking bubble here in the United States. People are losing their butts on this fracking industry. Saudi Arabia is pumping like crazy. How much will this fracking bubble factor into this whole larger economic collapse?
Well, it's just David Stockman. He wrote a book years ago called "The Great Deformation," and this has been my theory as well. I mean, all this money printing and Wall Street financial engineering has put cheap money into the hands of people who shouldn't have it in normal free market economics. That's why you have bubbles in stocks and bonds, especially when the government is actually supporting stocks and bonds as well. And of course, it creates a lot of deformation of the economies. It causes corporations to borrow money cheap to buy back stock, and then you get stock bubbles. It causes inflation of oil prices, which causes Wall Street to lend a lot of cheap money to companies to produce oil, high cost oil. And the next thing you know, you have a gigantic glut, and that's one of the big problems right now. We have tens of trillions of debt around the world, and a huge portion of it just came in the last 10 years since the financial crisis because of all the money printing since that has pushed interest rates down and pushed all this money into the hands of people that shouldn't have it. So, yes, we have a massive oversupply of oil around the world. It's going to keep pressure on prices for many years to come. And there's a lot of debt that's not going to get serviced as a result.
Do you see any production freeze in the near future? Do you see any cooperation between the major?
No, we just had the meeting. I mean, it's look, I was an oil analyst on Wall Street for 10 years. I worked at Salmon Smith Barney. And that was when OPEC actually had some power, when there were, more than one nation actually had the ability to adjust their production up and down. Right now, it's just Saudi Arabia for the most part, and every country, including Saudi Arabia, is in dire financial straits. They need all the cash, and they're not going to lose their market share and say, okay, we'll cut production and let all these U.S. oil shale producers take our market share. Of course not. And I said that all along, and that's why this whole fabricated meeting they had in the Middle East a week or two ago, I said they're going to do nothing. And of course they did nothing. Saudi and everyone else is going to keep printing all they can. The shale producers will will produce all they can because they need cash. Everyone needs cash. So there'll be no production freezes anytime soon. The production freezes will come when companies go out of business.
I'd like to get your take on the U.S. presidential election. I mean, why don't we just, for the sake of conversation, say that the race is going to be Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton? I mean, I don't know how for sure that'll be. I mean, they both have things hanging over them. Hillary Clinton has that whole email possible indictment hanging over her, and Trump might get it stolen from him at the convention. But let's just say, for our conversation, that it's Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. I mean, what do you see that both candidates bring to the table in terms of whatever that they're
right.
going to do? Yeah.
Well, it will be those two, and there's no way anyone's stealing it from him. There'll be a revolution in this country if they tried to steal it from him. And besides, he's going to get all the votes anyway. I mean, what you have right here is people are angry. They're angry because the economy is so bad. They're angry because years of Bush and Obama just making things worse and promising things and making things worse and worse, and everyone's as angry as they can get. I mean, these are dangerous times. I mean, I'm not calling Trump Hitler. I'm saying, but this is the kind of environment where demagogues become powerful. People will vote for him or Bernie Sanders just because they're angry, and that's why I believe he's going to win. And Hillary Clinton is establishment. People hate her. There's still people in this country who want something for free. They believe if I vote for a Democrat, that means I'm more likely to get, socialistic benefits. But they're both the same. What do you think? Trump's any different? They have to. You got half the country's on entitlements right now. If you don't give them their entitlements because they don't have jobs or savings, they're all going to starve. So, we're going further and further towards socialism, no matter who's the president. And my biggest fear is that whoever gets in power is going to get really, really powerful because people are just desperate. So, my bet is Trump's going to win. Will it be a good or a bad thing? I don't know. But what's going on in this country is no different than what's going on, for instance, all over Europe, where far left and far right parties are becoming more popular because people are angry.
I don't know. I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but I mean, why don't we dive into that pool for a second, I guess. Let's say Trump wins the presidency, and he starts doing what he says he wants to do. He's going to, fish out all those neocon rats out of the State Department and the Pentagon and the CIA and right the ship, so to speak. I mean, do you really think, do you, Andy Hoffman, think that the powers that be, the people who, are the keepers of the power structure, do you think they'll allow him to do such things? I mean, what sort of things do you think they could do to prevent him?
My area of expertise is financial.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
And I'll answer the question, and I try to avoid these things because I really, I'm a financial analyst by trade, and I try to only deal with facts. So these are just opinions, and then when it comes down to, well, what's the powers that be behind that? I don't know. Look, when it comes down to, first of all, I didn't know that Trump really has any plans of anything. All the things he says are just bluster. He's going to build the wall to Mexico that Mexicans are going to pay for. I mean, they're silly. It's just kind of it's rhetoric that gets people passionate, and that's what demagogues do. There's nothing to do. Rat neocons. What does that even mean? He's going to get into office. Let's say he gets in office, and he's going to try to stay in office. So trying to pull the walls down while you're inside the house doesn't help any. So I think really it's just a matter of anyone else who wants to be president. They want the power, and once they get it, well, you try to keep it. And as I've said all along, you could have Superman or Jesus Christ be the president right now. It's not going to change anything. The path that we are on financially and economically is irreversible. We are going to see the dollar dramatically lose further purchasing power, whether it's very rapidly or on a slower pace. We are going to see a much worse economy and much more social unrest, not just here but around the world. So it really doesn't matter who's president. It's just a matter of how they handle it. Are they going to be statesmen, or are they going to be Hitler-like, or are they going to be somewhere in between? I just don't know. I'm not going to judge what him or what Hillary Clinton would do because I just don't know. No one knows.
So, in your opinion, and from your analysis, the economic collapse, the economic turmoil, however you want to describe the situation, is baked in the cake. There's no righting the ship at all. No noble statesman could come in and fix or help the situation at all.
Well, these are financial problems, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how is a statesman going to help? What if you had the greatest financial genius of all time? Let's say a Warren Buffett, who wasn't an evil, sold-out, lobbyist. Pick the smartest man of all time, Albert Einstein. Applies him. Who cares? It doesn't matter. You think the U.S. is going to pay back $20 trillion of debt, which is going up by $1 trillion a year? Let alone that we have zero interest rates. What happens when interest rates go up the tiniest bit, and then you can't even service that debt? What about the $5 trillion that's off balance sheet that we have? What about the $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities that continue to grow? Of course, we can't pay it off, and it's not just the government; it's the municipalities, it's the corporations, record debt, individuals, record debt, all of our trading partners, record debt. The money printing equals creation of debt. So again, this is what a Ponzi scheme is. It's something that must grow larger and larger and larger. There's no way of paying off the debt, and the only way that you can continue the Ponzi scheme is to continue to print money and devalue the currencies, and that's how it has ended for the previous 1,000 attempts at fiat currency throughout history, and that's how it's been ending in the last 2 years for a lot of currencies in the world, and now it's inevitably going to end for the dollar. And we'll probably still have the dollar, but it'll be a much more devalued dollar. It's just a matter of the pace that it happens. I mean, it's happening now. Look at the cost of living of every single person you know. Is there anyone you know, and as the government complains, the Fed says, oh, we have deflation, we don't have enough inflation. Is there anyone you know whose cost of living has gone down? Even with gas prices going down, my cost of living is exploding.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's, my income level is, statistically, it's solidly middle class, but I don't feel like I'm middle class at all. I feel like, really, we're struggling to get by. And
remember we were kids, what, $1 million? You'd say a millionaire, and you go, oh my God, I wish I had $1 million. $1 million is not a level of comfort anymore. I mean, it's just not the cost. What if you have kids and you want to educate them? I mean, let alone you want to buy a house. They've created this housing bubble, so you got to, use all that money just to have a house. So absolutely. I mean, and they're going to keep printing money and keep devaluing, and you're going to continue to see the cost of things you need, like medical insurance, like all kinds of insurance. Rent is at an all-time high price right now. In fact, the average rent is now, I think it's double what it was 15 years ago. And this is the worst economy that we've had since the Great Depression.
Yeah, I remember that song just 20 years ago by the Bare Naked Ladies. If I had $1 million, that song wouldn't even make sense now. Because $1 million isn't really that much money today, I mean, it's crazy. But, I mean, with the dollar going much lower in the future, I mean, do you see a manufacturing rebound here? I mean, or do you see that it's just not, automation is going to take over, and we'll just never get that back ever again?
Well, that's two separate questions. And one, yes, automation is going to continue to take jobs both here and around the world. Automation is taking jobs in China, but we're in a currency war around the world. Everyone wants a cheap currency. It's not like, oh, we can devalue the dollar. First of all, if the dollar dramatically falls in value, I mean, you're going to talk about, global wars will go on over the ramifications. But it's not like we could just devalue the dollar because everyone's doing the same thing. It's called a currency war. And that's why, if we try to, do more QE, well, guess what? Japan will do more QE and go to more negative rates. So there's no way you can devalue. And even if you did, I mean, the difference in our costs of production, first of all, we don't have any production anymore. All the factories are gone. We'd have to build factories. But our costs are still way above where they are around the world. Now, our manufacturing, forget the money printing, just from a competitive standpoint, I mean, China's got 1.5 billion people. We can never compete with these people no matter how low our currency is. And by the way, that's propaganda that a weak currency helps. It doesn't help. It doesn't even help you get market share. Look at Japan. They cut the yen in half in the last 3 years, and they have the biggest trade deficit that they've had in decades. All it does is cause inflation for the people in the country, and ultimately, it doesn't really give you any business. It just sounds good from a political standpoint to say we're going to weaken the currency, except no one understands in this dumbed-down world, why would you want a weaker currency? That just means I can buy less stuff. I don't care if someone else could buy our factory stuff more. I got to buy stuff. My cost of living goes up. It doesn't help a country to have a weak currency.
I think a lot of the economic theories today, even by the so-called educated class, is crazy. We purposely went from a manufacturing economy to a service economy. We decided it was best for us to stop making things, and that would be better. That would make us better. China is making the same decision, it seems. They're transferring from a manufacturing economy to a service economy. Who decides these things?
Well, I don't think there's such thing as a service economy. Again, this is more of these propaganda terms, because basically what happened is we lost all of our jobs. A lot of it was because of competition. Because look, the Chinese decided we want to compete, and we got 1.5 billion people, and you got only 300 million, and we're going to do things cheaper. We have lower costs, so that's part of it. And the other part is these corporate titans. They're able to lobby and pretty much buy off congressmen to create all kinds of trade deals, which make it cheaper for them to manufacture overseas. So there is no more. The reason we call ourselves a service economy is not because we chose it; it's because we have no more manufacturing. And so we try to make it like it's a positive. But what does that mean, a service economy? Meaning, like if people buy clothes at a retail store with clothes that are manufactured in China, that's somehow good. If you work at McDonald's or at that Smith and Walensky Steakhouse, it's not producing anything. I mean, yeah, people got to eat food, but there's no such thing as a service economy. I mean, yes, you can say we produce software. But there's not much stuff we produce anymore. And China, whether they want to have more service jobs or not, and I firmly believe that they'll do just what India's done, is take a lot of our service positions because they're cheaper, but they're still, they and others in the Eastern Hemisphere are still going to be manufacturing everything because they have competitive advantages. The fact is, the U.S. is still living off, the financial power it was given at the end of World War II. The problem is that the world is caught up to it. It's now the most heavily indebted country in history. It's lost its manufacturing base, and it's even lost a lot of its respect around the world. So, America is a declining empire, and you're going to see the standard of living, which is way above what it should be because people have still taken the dollar as a reserve currency. It's going to come down more than any country in history, and it's going to be really scary for a lot of people.
Where do you think the American economy's focus will be post turmoil, post collapse? I mean, where do you think when we begin to rebuild ourselves? Where do you think we're going to go?
Well, it's more. I mean, you have to know what happens first. It's. I mean, are you saying a nuclear bomb hits us and we have to start from scratch? Are you saying it's a slow, a slow burn from being the world's leading economy to being a middle society? Is there going to be war? I mean, there's just no way of knowing what the world will look like or how it will come out of it. But in the end game, the U.S. standard of living is going to be no more than the rest of the world, which is a lot lower than the U.S. standard of living. There's absolutely no reason why. There's nothing the U.S. has other than military power and a reserve currency that's rapidly losing its hegemony over everyone else, and even militarily. I mean, we can't. There's plenty of countries that can fight us. China and Russia can fight us. We're no longer this superpower militarily or financially or economically. So people just have to realize, generally speaking, the trend toward a weaker, lower standard of living, which the vast majority of Americans are seeing today. That's why half of them are entitlements. That's why you have record low home ownership. All kinds of things are going in that direction, and it's only going to become more so. But I can't tell you if there's going to be some catastrophe that we have to rise from the ashes from, or if it's just going to be slow but sure. We look up, and the next thing we know, we're no longer the United States. We're Spain, or hopefully not Greece. But that's the direction we're going. It's inevitable.
Andy Hoffman of MilesFranklin.com. Go to MilesFranklin.com. They're one of the biggest bullion dealers out there. Andy Hoffman, very intelligent man. Glad to have him on the show today. Andy, I'm going to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug, any message you want to say, you got it.
Right. Again, Miles Franklin, we've been around since 1989. A+ Better Business Bureau rating, never had a complaint in 27 years. Buy, sell, trade, and store precious metals. I write every day for free at milesfranklin.com. And also, my firm has been doing, myself and our president and co-founder, Andy Schechtman, who's been there for 27 years himself, we've been doing these road shows around the country where we do free meetings, including dinner. It's Q&A sessions all night. We just did one in Fort Lauderdale last week. We have one on May 20th in Houston and another June 24th in Chicago. And you can always email me if you have any questions at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com.
Thank you very much, Andy, and we'd love to have you back on again in the future.
Be happy to do so.
Have a good day. And stay tuned, everybody. Up next is our segment, The Week with Wayne, where we run down Wayne Madsen of WayneMadsenReport.com's weekly news stories. So stay tuned for The Week with Wayne from Wayne Madsen of WayneMadsenReport.com.